20, I'm not sure what time it is, sometime in the afternoon here in Madrid, Spain, Trip Airport Suites. Listen, there's a lot of confusion about what's happening with this George Floyd arrest. Listen, what's happening, people need to understand, first of all, for them to understand what's happening, first they have to understand, mind control technologies, artificial superintelligence, etc. Have some basic understanding that the technology exists. The CIA and the Department of Defense, the shadow government, okay, and the deep state as well, the military-industrial complex, target tension zones to create race riots and civil wars, etc. That's what they did with Arab Spring until Arab Spring backfired on them. The reason you don't see any more Arab countries in revolution is because it backfired on the CIA. They became more radical and more terroristic in their ideology. So the CIA stopped the Arab Spring, and that they were using the same technology. The Ukraine, a few thousand, 5,000 or 10,000 people stormed. They targeted the city center of this riot, and they agitated the population, the rioters, with electromagnetic low frequency waves, whipping them into a frenzy to severe agitation, and then caused those few thousand rioters to storm the presidential palace, and they overthrew the pro-Russian government in Ukraine. Well, they've been using this technology on their own citizens as well. The CIA and the Department of Defense target tension zones with this technology. They use satellites, they use towers and mobile platforms, and they target tension zones, and they create race riots. They create civil wars. People talk about World War III, World War III. World War III has been well underway for a long time. It's just invisible. It's a war between the Russians and the Chinese on one side, and it's not as well unified as people think, but the Americans and their allies on the other side, and the third world and second world countries caught in between. Okay? That's what's happening. This World War III has been well underway for a long time. They're waging war. It's a war, but the war for the minds of men, the war for the minds of mankind, for the mind of men and women. It's an invisible war. It's a silent war. Okay, they're using secret weapons, invisible weapons that can't be seen. There's no bullets and bombs. It's a stream of energy. So all this is achieved through remote locations, using towers, satellites, and mobile platforms. The supercomputer uses a computer multiplexer to route the signal to a tower, satellite, or mobile platform. Then the tower, satellite, or mobile platform relays the signal to the target or targets. They did the same thing in 1991 with the Iraqi soldiers. Remember? Tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers, however many, surrendering with their hands raised and weapons dismantled and saying Allah had told us to surrender. No. They can target large groups of people at a time. So what's happening is that all of this is playing right into the hands of the shadow government. It's just helping them achieve their objectives of turning America into a police state. You think, finally people are going to rise up, there's going to be a revolution. No. Unless people are willing to die, okay, unless people are willing to go and grab the guns off the mantle of their fireplace and lay down their lives, it's not going to happen. All that's going to happen is that these riots that are going on all over America are actually the product of training, research, and development, and will further the policy objectives of the shadow government and the deep state of turning America into even more of a police state, of an electronic concentration camp. They'll pass more laws. They'll militarize local police departments even more than they have in the past. Not just with information systems, but with actual, it's all being set up. These FEMA camps, more of them will come into operation now. Okay, what's happening is they're targeting the populations in each of these major cities with electromagnetic low frequency waves, these tension zones, these riots, and they're whipping them into a frenzy. This is the deep state and the shadow government that's doing it. And World War III has been well underway between the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese and the Europeans for a long time. That's what happened in Cuba with the Cuban embassy personnel. That's what happened in China with the American embassy personnel in Cuba. Okay, I was attacking Cuba inside a hotel room long before the American embassy personnel were attacking Cuba in a hotel room. Okay, I was in a hotel room in Havana, Cuba, being attacked with this technology. Okay, before they ever set up an embassy there in Havana, Cuba. The American embassy hadn't even opened, and I was in Havana getting hit with this technology. Okay, so they can hit anyone anywhere. This is a global weapon system, and they're targeting tension zones. They're creating these riots. The populace is playing right into the hands of the shadow government and the deep state. They're targeting tension zones. They create civil wars around the world this way. This is how they created Arab Spring. You know, this is how they overthrew the government. You see Hong Kong. You see all these massive riots that were going on around the world before. Pay attention. COVID-19 was released. Remember all the riots in Hong Kong and in South America and other places around the world. All these riots were starting to break out. And suddenly you had COVID-19, coronavirus outbreak. They're targeting tension zones. They're creating race riots. They're creating civil wars. They've been doing it for quite a while. There's World War III between the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese is well underway. It's not sometime in the future. It started decades ago when the Russians first targeted the Americans with microwaves, the American embassy in the 1960s. There was no longer just a Cold War. It was a war using electromagnetic low frequency weapons, and it's continued. World War III is underway. It's just an invisible war. It's a silent war where there are new weapons being utilized. Okay? So these civil wars you see developing around the world, these race riots, etc., all of this is being directed, is being accomplished simply by targeting these crowds with electromagnetic low frequency waves, whipping them into a severe state of agitation and getting them to riot. And now they will further the objectives of the deep state and the shadow government of increasing laws and passing more laws and passing more protocols and opening up these FEMA camps and et cetera, until they achieve their objectives of turning America into, not just an electronic concentration camp, but a psychotronic concentration camp. World War III is well underway, but also, the civil disturbances you see going on in America, that's all perpetrated. Those people that are rioting in the streets of LA and Atlanta and New York and Chicago and Minneapolis, that is by design. They're being targeted and don't even realize it. This is Brian too.